Finally, Venus and Mercury are coming out of retrograde this week. So, if things have felt a little bit foggy for you in love, communication, or decision making, clarity is on the horizon. Also, we have a full moon in Libra coming up, which always brings heightened emotions and major revelations. And this one is no exception. And guess what? Mars will also be in play with this full moon, and I have everything you need to know. Let's dive into what this week's astrology means for you and how you can work with the energy instead of against it. But first, welcome to my channel. I'm your intuitive astrologer, Brandy Kahn. I approach astrology from a psychological perspective due to my educational background. And as a trained evidential and trans medium, I don't just analyze planetary aspects. I'm able to tap into the energy behind the aspects and get really good intuitive insight. And if you'd like to know more about how I work, please visit my website, brandycon.com, and schedule a free 15-minute strategy session. I'd love to meet you. Now, let's jump into this week's astrology. On Monday, April 7th, Mercury will station direct at 26 degrees of Pisces. The planet of communication has been retrograde since March 14th, and you may have been rethinking, re strategizing, or rebranding. The time for reflection is over, and it's time to move ahead with what you've learned over the last few weeks. As the energy of Mercury is shifting, it will take a few days until we are really able to feel the forward motion of Mercury. Think of it this way: you're in a car driving on the interstate and you're heading south, and you realize that you're heading in the wrong direction. You want to go north. So you take the next exit, you come to a stop at the stoplight, and then you take a left and make your way to the ramp to get back on the interstate again. And once you're on the interstate, you're heading north in the opposite direction from where you were originally going. But it takes a moment for you to regain the speed and the momentum that you had before. And it's the exact same way for Mercury. Mercury has been heading in the direction where he's been reviewing the past. But now Mercury will be moving forward into the future with all of the lessons from the past. Around April 9th or April 10th, you may notice that you feel ready to finally move forward with creative projects. And you might also notice that it's easier to talk about your feelings or to empathize with the feelings of others. The energy of Mercury and the sign of Pisces will help us to thrive if we allow that energy to access the right side of the brain. So, making music, art, doing yoga, or meditating could really help with communication and our thinking processes. And if you are the parent of an adolescent or teenager, like me, communication should get much easier over the next few days with your child. On Monday, April 7th, Venus retrograde will conjunct Saturn at 25 degrees of Pisces. Venus retrograde has been requiring us to re examine our relationships, friendships, and our values since March 1st. And now we have Saturn adding its energy of discipline and structure to the mix. With this combination, you might have major realizations about the lessons that you've been learning over the last few weeks and how you need to commit to a different course of action. Saturn adds a dose of reality to the area of your chart where Venus has been retrograding. So, if Venus has been retrograding through your second house of money, you might be conceding to the fact that you need a new financial plan that requires more discipline and consistency. Or if Venus has been retrograding through your 11th house of friends, groups, and organizations, you may feel that certain groups don't resonate with you anymore. And instead, you want to dedicate your time and energy to another organization that is much more aligned with your values. Think of Saturn as a teacher who explains why things must change. And with this energy, you might realize how certain connections are impeding your progress. Now, on the other hand, you might realize that a certain connection or relationship is highly beneficial for you and that it's time to lean in and commit on a deeper level. And the same can also be true with a hobby, all right? You might be involved with a hobby that's really feeding you on a soul level. And now might be the time when you really commit to that mode of creative expression. Now, as I was intuitively tapping into this aspect, the energy of Saturn came through and said, it's nice to wish for amazing relationships and beautiful things, but without discipline, it all remains a dream. If you take that insight into account, you can intentionally use this energy of Saturn in your favor. On Saturday, April 12th, Venus will station direct at 24 degrees of Pisces. With Venus retrograde, we've been thinking about our relationships and our values. We may have reconnected with old friends, with family members, or even exes. And it was really difficult for me to understand how reminiscing about the past and reconnecting with people who may have been challenging for us could possibly be beneficial. And what I was intuitively shown is that sometimes looking backwards and integrating past lessons can help us to move forward without being energetically stuck in the past and wondering, what if? Gaining closure can allow someone to move forward with a deeper sense of purpose. And now Venus is ready to move forward again with these new lessons. So, once again, like with Mercury, it might take a few days to really feel the energy of Venus moving forward. But again, imagine you're on the interstate, you're heading south, you need to go north. It's going to take a minute to exit and head in a different direction. A few days after Venus moves direct, you're ready to focus on present day relationships in a much deeper way. On Saturday, April 12th, we will have a full moon at 23 degrees of Libra. Full moons can bring a sense of completion or closure, and you really need to check where this is occurring in your chart. Which house in your chart is in the sign of Libra? This could be the area that feels super sensitive or super emotional around the time of the full moon. If you have Libra in the sixth house of daily work, routine, and health, you might be saying goodbye to a job. Or if you have Libra in the fifth house of creative expression, one of your children might be graduating. This full moon will also be squaring Mars in the sign of Cancer, which can be a difficult aspect because the energy of Mars can be expressed or used in an aggressive way, but it doesn't have to manifest that way. You can use this energy to be really decisive and to take action regarding the Libra part of your chart. For example, let's say that you are a Libra rising and your first house is in the sign of Libra. For you, that's where the full moon will be taking place. And maybe you realize that a relationship is not serving your highest good. And you decide to use the energy of Mars to walk away from that situation, which may bring some changes to your home or living situation. Or maybe, just maybe, you realize that you haven't been very supportive to one of your close friends and there's distance in the relationship. You can use the energy of Mars to bring a sense of understanding and to reconnect with your friend. Now, also, this full moon is ruled by Venus in Pisces. So you may notice a creative element regarding how it shows up for you. Maybe you have a child who is preparing to graduate and head to college next year. And your child is trying to figure out if they will continue with piano, dance, or sports once they are in college. Well, if they decide not to, there's a sense of closure or completion. If they decide to pursue an avenue like that, Mars is allowing them to take action in a new way. So, those are the transits for this week. My hope is that you all use this energy in a very intentional way. The stars may guide us, but we ultimately hold the power to shape our destiny. So, make this week absolutely beautiful. I'll see you next week.